Welcome to Weasel Gaming, and today we're going to be looking at the tactics for our Sun and Moon Forbidden Light Tropical Takedown deck featuring Exeggutor. This is a interesting deck. It's a really fun deck to play because it's got some very unique gameplay elements. It's a kind of an unexpected deck. If you're playing against it and you don't know what's in it, it plays in some really weird ways. It doesn't necessarily hold up all that well anymore against the Sword and Shield decks. It was really pretty good in Sun and Moon days. It can still play okay. It's a little weak against fire decks for sure, and those do make up the bulk of the meta right now in theme deck play. As always, we want to start with our energy, and this is one of the first elements that you'll see is a little bit different for this deck. Instead of one energy type or two, this deck has 5 energy types. So this deck has 3 dark, 3 fighting, 3 water, 3 psychic, and 8 grass energy. Has a large range of energy, has a large range of Pokemon, and there's some very specific reasons that it has that much energy, and we will be getting to that. So first off, we're going to be looking at our starters. These are the Pokemon you want to start the game with, the Pokemon you want to put out there in that active spot first while you're either building up your hand or getting things prepared. So for starters, first one we're going to look at is Furfrou. Furfrou is a colorless type, has 90 health, has a 1 energy return attack that does 20 damage, and you may draw cards up until you have 5 cards in your hand. Clearly a good way to draw some cards, especially if you're able to play everything in your hand and get things moving. This always keeps your hand restocked up to 5 cards, which is handy. Another one for drawing here is Solrock. Solrock has 90 health, is a fighting type, has a double draw ability that allows you for 1 energy to draw 2 cards. Solar Heat does 20 damage plus more if there's a stadium in play, but stadiums don't play a big part in theme decks, so you're rarely going to see Solar Heat get that bonus damage. So Solrock's real true purpose here is just draws. Next up for starters, we have Alolan Sandshrew. Water type with 60 health. The reason he makes a good starter is that attack, which is a no energy attack, Fury Swipes, that does 10 damage the amount of heads that you flip, and you get to flip 3 coins here. So he's going to be doing 0, 10, 20, or 30 damage for free. You don't have to put any energy on him for that, which is why he makes a pretty good starter. And along those same lines, we have Alolan Rattata. 40 health, dark type, has a Gnaw attack for 20 damage. And again, this is a no energy attack. So either one of these is a good way that for free, without any energy expenditure on these guys, you can start doing damage to their starter Pokemon right away. And that no energy part is actually kind of helpful because that means you can be spending your 1 energy a turn getting guys on your bench ready to fight instead of getting guys in the active spot fighting. So that is our starters. Next up, we'd be looking at defense, but there is no defense in this game, in this deck. There's no defense. There's no passive defense. There's no active defense. There's not even any like weird little secondary effects where you have a 50% chance to paralyze them or anything like that. There's just no defense in this deck. So we're going to skip ahead. We're going to hit our utility players. And there's a couple utility Pokemon in here. Now we've already talked about Sandshrew, but Sandshrew evolves into Alolan Sandslash. 110 health, water type. His attack is a 3 energy smash turn, which does 50 damage and allows you to switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. That's not a great attack. You're not going to be using Alolan Sandslash for doing damage. I wouldn't even be putting a lot of energy on him unless I had excess energy in my hand. Then Sandslash becomes this kind of player where if you need to delay the opponent, but you still want to do some damage, that smash turn allows you to put Sandslash out there, get that 50 damage, put him back on the bench, and put out some kind of sacrificial Pokemon while you're building up other options. But other than that, you're not going to be really using that much. Reason Sandslash is here is the ability, Slush Rush. Once during your turn, before your attack, you may draw a card. You do have 2 Sandshrews and 2 Sandslashes. So if you get this set up, you can have 2 free draws per round because of Sandslash. Our other utility player here is Oricorio. Oricorio is a psychic type with 90 health. Not a good attacker again. Has that casual slap 2 energy attack for 30 damage. That's not a good efficiency. That's not good damage. Not a good use of your energy. But Oricorio has an ability, Vital Dance. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. If you're having a hard time getting the energy you need, this allows you to pick out the specific energy you want from the deck and then play them where you need them. So Oricorio is great for just pulling that energy out. If you already have ample energy, not a Pokemon you want to play out there. Once you play him, best thing you can do is get him knocked out. He's going to be wasting room on your bench. Makes a good sacrificial Pokemon to delay the enemy for a round. That's it for our utility Pokemon. So now we're going to go to our power hitters. And I'm saying that rather kind of loosely here. This deck does not do a lot of heavy hits. The point of this deck is to do quick damage early on, get some fairly high damage numbers early on, and throw your opponent off balance. If you don't get moving quick with this deck, you're going to be in trouble because you don't do a lot of damage. Our first damage dealers are based off our Rattata. We've already talked about him. So we'll take a look at our Raticates. Now this deck actually has 2 different Raticates. So the first one we'll look at here, the Alolan Raticate, Dark type, 120 health, has a free attack, no energy attack, Enhanced Fang. Now this usually only does 10 damage unless you have an attached Pokemon tool, in which case this does 50 more damage. Now, 60 damage is the most he's going to do, and that's not very impressive. But if you have the escape board, or perhaps the weakness policy, although I wouldn't necessarily be playing weakness policy on this Pokemon, but if you attach one of those 2 tools to Raticate, suddenly he's doing 60 damage for free. For a Pokemon that has 120 health, if you get that out there early enough, that can actually be pretty effective. He can start doing that damage without any expenditure of energy and do some heavy hits early on. His Hyper Fang attack is a 1 energy attack for 60 damage, but you have to flip a coin, and if it's tails, the attack does nothing. So all around as an attacker, he's not great. He's either got a 50-50 chance at 60 damage, or he does 10 damage, or 60 with an attached tool. So it's a little hard to really make use of him, and he's not going to hit all that hard. The other Alolan Raticate is a little more impressive. Also Dark type, also 120 health. We're going to look at the second attack first, and that's Endeavor. 3 energy attack. You flip 2 coins, and this attack does 30 more damage for each heads. So we're looking at an attack that does 60 damage base, plus an additional possibly 60 damage. So this attack does 60, 90, or 120, depending on your flips. As you can see, that's obviously way better than Raticate, although it does take more energy. And there is still some random chance involved. So you can't depend on this attack, but it is something that you want and you are going to probably need to use at some point. Next up is Marowak, who evolves from Cubone. Cubone himself, not very impressive, 60 health, fighting type. Has a 2 energy burdensome bone for 40 damage, but then you can't attack the next turn. Obviously, not a very good choice. Alolan Marowak, however, is a little more impressive. 120 health, is a fire type, which mixes things up a little bit. Has a Limbo, which is a free attack. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. That again is a nice way to pull some energy and get them placed wherever you need them. So again, you're going to be searching your deck, pulling out whatever energy you want, placing them on whatever Pokemon you want. You also have a 2 energy Alolan Club, which is where his damage comes from. It does 20 damage times the amount of Alolan Pokemon you have in play. So, Alolan Marowak counts, so he's going to do a bare minimum of 20 damage. If you have your bench filled with 5 other Pokemon that are Alolan, you have a lot of options here. Alolan Exeggutor, Alolan Raticate, Alolan Sandshrew, Alolan Rattata, Alolan Sandslash, a lot of different options. Then you can actually get Alolan Club up to 120 damage. Again, that's not a huge amount of damage, but 120 is good enough. It is competitive amount of damage, especially for a Pokemon that has 120 health and it's only a 2 energy attack. That's why leaving Oricorio on your bench or Solrock or someone like that can kind of hurt you. So you don't want to fill up your bench early on because if you're filling that bench with non-Alolan Pokemon, you're going to be weakening Marowak's damage capacity here. So make sure you kind of plan out ahead for that. Alolan Club can be a pretty important part of your strategy. Finally, we're going to be looking at our featured Pokemon, who fits into our damage capabilities. We have Execute here, Grass type, 40 health, only has a multiply attack, which allows you to search your deck for an Execute and put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. Probably not going to be using that very often. Exeggutor is a little more impressive though. 160 health, which is nice. Grass type, weak to fire, however. Has a 1 energy Tropical Shake. Tropical Shake does 20 damage plus 20 more damage for each type of basic energy card in your discard pile. But you cannot add more than 100 damage this way. And this is where all of those different energy types come into play. What you want to do with this deck is get one of each of these energy. 1 dark, 1 fighting, 1 water, 1 psychic. I missed the water. Where's water? And 1 grass into the discard. That'll give you 5 energy in the discard, which will add 100 damage to Tropical Shake, giving Exeggutor 120 damage for 1 energy. So Exeggutor is really your key. You want to be playing this deck in a way that gets as much of that energy into the discard pile as possible, 1 of each, and you get Exeggutor on the board in the active spot as soon as possible. Then you have a 1 energy, 120 damage attack. So that's what this deck is doing. It's trying to race to dumping that energy and getting Exeggutor into the active spot. Now you can dump that energy in a number of ways. We do have some trainer cards that allow you to dump energy. There are no Pokemon that do, but you can always put energy on these Pokemon. So even if you're using someone like Sandslash or Rattata that have a no energy attack, you can throw energy on them so that when the opponent knocks them out, that energy is now in your discard pile. There are a few decks you have to watch out for there that can actually return that energy to your hand instead of allowing it to go to the discard. Those decks can really kind of limit your ability to do what you want to with this one, but there aren't a whole lot of those decks out there, so it's not a big concern. So those are our damage dealers. No one can do over 120 damage. And for all of those guys that can do 120 damage, that damage is conditional. It's conditional on how many Alolan Pokemon you have on your bench. It's conditional on how much energy you have in the discard pile. It's conditional just based on random luck of flipping coins. So you're not going to be doing consistent damage until you can fulfill those kind of situations. But on to our trainers. First of all, with trainers, we always look at our draws. And the first draw we're going to talk about here is Sophocles. Sophocles allows you to discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, you draw 4 cards. Now, usually you're kind of iffy about wanting to discard cards to do anything, but you need to be discarding those energy cards so that your Alolan Exeggutor can actually do some damage. So that's where this guy comes into play. You're going to use him to dump some energy into the discard to buff up your Exeggutor. Next up we have, of course, 2 Hows. He allows you to draw 3 cards. So we have 2 of each of those, Sophocles and How. We do have 2 Professor Kukuis. Kukui allows you 2 draws, but also increases your damage by 20. Now, in this deck, because of your limited damage capability and the kind of Pokemon you're going to be facing, I would save Kukui as much as possible to give yourself a little bonus damage. Being able to knock one of those 120s up to 140 damage is going to make things a little bit easier on you when you're facing those higher health opponents or those Pokemon that have any kind of defense on them. We also have 1 Lily. Lily allows you to draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. If it's your first turn, you can draw until you have 8 cards in your hand. So that's it for our draws. Now we're going on to pulling Pokemon. Oh, I should say also with the draws, don't forget that you also have Furfrou, Solrock, Sandslash, and even Eradicate to help really do some different draws in there. They can really help boost your drawing capability. For pulling Pokemon, we do have 2 Nest Balls. They allow you to search your deck for a basic Pokemon. You're going to be using this just to get those Pokemon that you need to set up the evolved Pokemon. And we have 2 Ultra Balls. Ultra Balls serve a dual purpose here. Ultra Ball has you discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, you search your deck for any Pokemon. So this is going to be used to search out those evolved Pokemon, especially the Exeggutor, so that you can get them into play. Marowak is also a good choice, as is the 1 Raticate that can actually do some decent damage. Now, what you're going to want to be discarding again here is most likely energy, to make sure you have that wide variety of energy in the discard pile so Exeggutor can do the damage. We also have a Rescue Stretcher. Now, Rescue Stretcher allows one of 2 options. You either put a Pokemon from your discard pile directly into your hand, or shuffle 3 Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck. Most often than not, you're going to want to be using this in a situation where you have multiple Exeggutors on your bench, but only 1 Exeggutor. When that Exeggutor gets knocked out, then you can use Rescue Stretcher, pull that Exeggutor back out of your discard, evolve him right away to an Exeggcute, and then you can start doing that damage right away. In a situation where you've already lost both Exeggutors, that's a good way to use Rescue Stretcher to get them back into the deck in hopes that you can redraw them and reuse them. Don't forget that Exeggcute can also be used to pull other Exeggcutes out of your deck. Next up is Energy Manipulation. Now, we don't have a lot of energy use in this deck. Your main damage dealer only takes 1 energy. Your next best damage dealer only takes 2 energy. After that, it's 3 energy. And that's it. You got a lot of free attacks in this, a lot of low energy attacks. So you don't need a lot of energy. Energy Retrieval allows you to put 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your hand. While you don't need a lot of energy to get this theme deck moving, you are going to end up throwing a lot of energy away early on. which then when you need that energy later on may be a problem, especially if you need specific types of energy. And that's where energy retrieval comes in handy. Lady allows you to search your deck for up to 4 energy cards, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Lady is great for early on, if you have her, to pull a variety of energy cards out that then you can discard with either Ultra Balls or Sophocles, or just put them onto Pokemon that are going to get knocked out so you can get that energy into your discard pile. We also have one Energy Lotto. Energy Lotto lets you look at the top 7 cards from your deck. You may reveal an energy card that you find there and put it into your hand. Not the most dependable, but you should typically be able to pull an energy using that. There's 20 energy cards in a 60-card deck. That means 1 out of every 3 cards should be energy. Out of 7, you should on average be pulling 2 or more energy. Also, don't forget that you do have Oricorio, who can pull a couple energy out of the deck, and Marowak, who can pull a couple energy and place those energy on Pokemon. Now, we don't have any Pokemon that are dumping energy a lot, so energy typically isn't a big deal, but you do need to be carefully managing what energy is going where. Next up, we're going to talk about our controller utility cards, of which there are a few here. We do have one Escape Rope that acts as a switch for yourself, but forces your opponent to do a switch also. We have an Escape Board, which lowers the retreat cost by 1 energy for whatever Pokemon it's attached to. Aren't a lot of big uses that you're going to be doing this for. And the reason for that is your retreat costs of things like Exeggutor are higher than the energy costs that he has for his attacks. So those free Pokemon, Sandshrew is the same way. He's got a free attack, but a 1 energy retreat cost. You're probably not going to be doing a lot of retreating with this anyways. There isn't a lot of retreat strategy involved. So that really is a good option for the Raticate to boost his damage. We also have a weakness policy. Best used on Exeggutor when you're facing fire decks. Also can be useful for Marowak if you're facing a water deck. Could be used on the Raticate to boost his damage a little bit. But those are kind of your options there. We have a Field Blower, which allows you to discard 2 Pokemon tools or stadium cards. Yours or your opponent's. I have no idea why you would want to dispose of your own. There aren't a lot of tools or stadiums in play in theme decks, so Field Blower probably won't be of much use. Good card to discard if you need to discard for some reason. And then we have a Potion for healing 30 damage. Best saved for your damage dealers, Exeggutor. Marowak is kind of secondary. Usually I'm going to be saving that for Exeggutor, though. So that is our Pokemon. That is our trainer cards. There isn't a whole lot to do here except get a lone Pokemon on your bench, discard some energy, and get your damage dealers out there as soon as possible to start doing that damage. You can, if things fall right in your deck, end up doing a lot of damage this way early on. So now it's time to look at our stats. First up is power. This deck does not hit hard. The most damage you're going to be able to pull off is 120 damage. That's fairly low. Even in Sun and Moon terms, that's fairly low. In Sword and Shield days, that's really low for damage. And in all 3 cases where you can pull 120 damage, that damage is very situational. Again, you either have to have a full bench of a lone Pokemon for Marowak, you have to have 5 specific energy cards discarded for Exeggutor, and for Raticate, you need to be lucky with your coin flips. So damage is low to begin with, and it's conditional. Speed of this deck is fairly high, though. Speed is sitting at a 4. The reason is because all of your damage dealers can get out there pretty quickly and start doing damage fairly early. Exeggutor is only a 1 evolution, 1 energy Pokemon. Marowak is a 1 energy or 2 energy, 1 evolution. Your Raticate is a 1 evolution and only a 3 energy card. Plus, you have a lot of damage dealers that take no energy or very little energy. Your Sandshrew, your Rattata, one of your Raticates can do damage for 0 energy. So it's very easy to start doing damage early with this deck, to start getting that damage out there, to start knocking out Pokemon early and really throw your opponent off. Agility is our ability to adapt to different situations. We have a wide array of different types of Pokemon, so we can adapt to different advantages or disadvantages fairly well. We also have a lot of Pokemon that are easy to get into play and cheap to use. So it's easy to switch someone out here or there if needs be based on what you're facing. Energy efficiency, very high for this deck. You don't have any Pokemon that discard energy, and a lot of your Pokemon that do damage have pretty low energy costs for that. Plus you have some Pokemon that are doing attacks for 0 energy. The problem is you do have to discard at least 5 energy to really make use of this deck. So you will be throwing some energy away, but you do have some energy manipulation cards. So all in all, really efficient deck energy-wise. You shouldn't really have a lot of problems unless you draw really poorly. Complexity of this deck is sitting at a 3. It is a rather complex deck comparative to other decks. You really only have 3 attackers you're looking for, but you got a lot of different things in play. You got to be discarding cards, you got to be sacrificing energy, placing energy on Pokemon that maybe don't need that energy because you're just going to get them knocked out, so you can get that energy into discard. Swapping around cards. There's a lot of wheels in motion. None of it's all that complicated or difficult to understand, but it is there. You do have to be aware of it. Resiliency is fairly low at a 2. No defensive abilities, no passive defenses, not a lot of guys with a lot of hit points. You got a few guys sitting at 120. Exeggutor is sitting at 160. But none of those are particularly high or going to take a lot of hits. Your type advantage is sitting at a 4. The reason is because you have such a wide variety of Pokemon. You have fighting Pokemon, you have water Pokemon, you have dark Pokemon, you have grass Pokemon, you have fire Pokemon. That spreads out your weaknesses, but also spreads out your advantages. Now, some of them you're going to have a hard time really making use of. If you need to use Fighter for an advantage, you really only have 2 Pokemon, and that's Cubone and Solrock, neither of which do a lot of damage, but can do a decent amount of damage in a pinch. Cubone, if he has a type advantage, could do 80 damage. Solrock could do 40, or under the right circumstances, could do 80 damage also. Not something you're going to depend on in those situations, but a nice little advantage if you're just kind of delaying tactics to set something else up. You can actually do some damage too. As far as manipulation goes, it's pretty low, sitting at a 1. You do have that the blower, and you have escape rope, but that's really about it. You really don't have any other way to manipulate their Pokemon or their cards or anything else. So that's it for this deck. Again, Tropical Takedown is a really fun deck to play. I enjoy playing this deck. It is surprisingly powerful if you get the right cards at the right time. If you can get moving early, you can really do some damage and really throw off an opponent. They'll be putting down Pokemon that they want to build up for later, and you're able to knock things out so quickly that they're going to end up losing Pokemon they don't want to lose, just to hold you off. If you get things set up quick enough, In online, you'll see a lot of people concede against you. If you can get an Exeggutor out there with a decent damage amount, or a Marowak out there with some decent damage, that can really scare people off early on. So, fun deck, one of my favorite decks to play. Not all that powerful, though. So, that's the one downside. With that, I hope you feel a little more comfortable about this deck. Honestly think you should give it a try if you have this deck, or if you have some excess coins and you're online, pick this deck up, play around with it. It's a fun little deck. It's an interesting little deck. Not the best all around anymore, but not bad. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.